So we are studying systematic self-denial, Thursday's lesson. And the first verse that is brought out here, it says, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. And so the whole principles of stewardship and generosity and beneficence and sustaining the cause of God with our gifts, our returns to God, into the treasury of God, for the work of God to go forward. It is all to go forward in order, not in confusion, with exactness and thoroughness, so that God can bless, because God is not the author of confusion. We have examples here in the last section, in the very last question, from the chapter of faith in Hebrews. And these examples bring out the sacrifices of those in the past. We see Abraham brought out. He was called by faith. When he was called to go out into a place which he would later receive as an inheritance, he obeyed. And he didn't even know where he was going. He lived in a tent. He became a nomad. He left Ur of the Chaldees, which was a very wealthy city, and where they had plumbing that came to the houses. They had multi-story homes. It was not a little village in the outskirts. It was a business center. It was a wealthy city. And he left it all to be a nomad and didn't even know where he was going. But he obeyed God. And everywhere he went, he built an altar and left a monument and an example of how to worship the true God. The next example, we have Moses. Moses, who was the crown prince in Egypt, and yet his mother taught him of the true God. And in the palace, his mother, his princess mother, was introducing him to the false gods, the many gods of Egypt. And he chose to follow Jehovah, the God of Israel. And he turned his back on being the future Pharaoh and having all the comforts and all the pleasures that this earth could offer, because Egypt was the wealthy kingdom in the world at that time. He turned his back on it. And it says he esteemed the reproach of Christ greater riches than all the treasures of Egypt. This is sacrifice. So when we think about giving our 10% tithe or a little extra offering for a school building or a church building, think about some of these examples and what they gave up. They gave up bright futures to be nomads, to wander in the wilderness, to put up with millions of complaining, traveling Israelites going to Canaan for 40 years. It was not an easy journey. But Moses is in heaven now. He has an eternal reward. And then in the final verses, 37 to 40, we see that there are examples of many martyrs who were stoned, who were slain with a sword, who wandered about in sheepskin and goatskins. They did not have any homes. They were disowned. They were persecuted. They were hunted like wild beasts, of whom the world was not worthy. They lived in caves in the mountains, but they have a good report in heaven, and they have a reward waiting for them. And though they are resting now, when Jesus comes back, they, with those that are alive and remain that are faithful, and I want to be one of them, whether resting or whether alive, I want to be one of them, to meet Jesus in the air and receive the eternal reward. I'm not interested in the reward of this earth, the pleasures, the fame, or the honor of this world, but to be with my Jesus forever. And so these examples that were given here, these people lost their homes, they lost their families, they lost their livelihood. They gave all. God at this moment is not calling me or you, most likely, to give up our home and leave and wander in a mountain or live in a cave. But what is our attitude towards giving back the little 10% and offerings of gratitude and offerings to help the work of God go forward? Are we as willing as they were? This, I think, is the big question. And the same thing happened with the Adventist pioneers. They gave all. What are we giving for Jesus? God bless you.